Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the very first episode of I fucked that up already. Off to a great, great
that.
start. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of Above the Notches, an outdoors podcast, a hunting podcast, but YouTube doesn't like the word hunting in anything that they do. I'm one of the hosts, Adam Noyes. You probably already know this if you're on my YouTube channel. Joining me is my co-host.
I'm Ryan Marvin, and I'm Ryan Marvin. I fucked that up
the one-
immediately. Actually, I found a couple more on Facebook.
Son of a bitch. So you're not supposed to admit
They're cool
that.
guys.
Are they cool guys?
A couple of them. I've talked to a few of them.
Because I've found a few Adam Noyes, and they're all trash.
There was one fellow from South Africa. That was Ryan Marvin.
Okay.
He was a little different than me, as you can imagine.
I believe it.
He looked like he was... His whole family's from there, let's put it that way.
Well, Marvin, I have been kind of toying around with this idea for quite a while. Because I hunt, you hunt,
Yeah.
You've taken me hunting
Yeah,
a couple of times.
sure.
I used to hunt a lot more when I was younger, and then I unfortunately made the mistake of moving to Long Island, New York, where it's the opposite of that. You can't do anything there.
Well, you can, just...
It's highly frowned
Yeah.
upon. I only recently kind of got back into it within like the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Have I really, because I moved back here, which to me was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Long time coming, really.
Yes. I mean, spending seven, almost 8 years on Long Island, I was ready to come back.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I've had enough. And that was one of the first things I did, was I went bear hunting. That was one of the first things, and I'm not gonna lie, that's my favorite thing to hunt. I love bear hunting.
Yeah, no, bear hunting's great. You know, there's 100 ways to do it too.
It's really, I've learned the different ways of doing it too. And now it's gotten to the point where you know deer a lot more than I do. I feel like when it comes to deer, I haven't hunted them enough where it's like I don't understand them yet.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna pretend that I do either. It just seems that I've gotten a hold on,
on it better. And I'm like that with bears. Like I've seen them enough to know, okay, this is what they're gonna do.
Yeah, and I've killed 3 bear, but
Same.
it's not something I go out of my way to do, but when I do it, I love it. Mostly because at the start of bear season, the mosquitoes are horrific.
They are horrendous.
And
yeah,
a lot of bear hunting, if you hunt them the way I do, you kind of just got to hang out around where the food source is.
Yeah.
And so it's just...
Yeah, I bundle up.
Yeah.
Like I'll be sweating my ass off
Actually,
for hours, but I'll bundle up.
This past year I got one of those, was it ozonics, or people know what I'm talking about. It's a thing that burns off this like pad you put into it.
Oh, those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thermocell, that's the word.
Do they work?
And they work
Shit.
shockingly well. My buddy and I had a bait site over on his property, and he had a ladder stand, but it had like the camo shell around it.
That's what I use.
And I would turn that thermosol on for like a few minutes, and like the like I say, this camo outside layer on the stand would keep all of that smoke or whatever that puts off inside of it. So I would turn that thing on for 15 minutes, and like for 4 hours I could sit there and the mosquitoes wouldn't bother me.
Lucky, because I had that. I believe it was about halfway through spring turkey one year. And I was in an area that was very swampy.
Yeah.
And I forgot to douse myself.
Well, normally halfway through turkey season, you've already gotten something. Stereotypically. Then you get one of those years where you just have it rough. And you're out there those last couple weeks of the season, you're like, oh my God.
Yes.
This sucks.
Yeah, and I think the reason why was because I was in the process of... I was only up here for a little bit. I was late, and I remember there's this one year I didn't even get to go deer hunting at all because of what work was having me do. I had just started working at the news station, which, by the way, I don't live above the notches, so this is kind of a lying title.
Yeah.
But I hunt up here.
This podcast is taking place above the notches.
Certainly, yeah. And you're above the notches because the weather says, yeah, you're just going to get a dusting of snow, and then lo and behold, we get dumped on with it.
The rest of New Hampshire doesn't know this area exists.
I don't think anywhere in the country knows that this area exists.
No.
Yeah. It's rather entertaining.
Yeah.
How little people give a fuck about this area.
Basically, if you see this area on the news in our state, somebody got murdered, or there was a horrific car crash, or a hiker went out in sweatpants in -20 and froze to death on the top of Franconia Notch. Well, they see what it's like down by where the cars are. They're like, oh, it's 60 degrees, it's nice. And they go up high, and it's like, oh, it's 30 up here and windy. Yes. I'm gonna die.
Yeah. Well, they were just talking about Mount Washington, and I was like, Mount Washington had like 130-mile-per-hour winds up there, and it was like normal down here.
Former holder of the highest wind speed ever recorded.
And there's a reason why.
A few miles that way.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there and I'm like,
was that 242 or
something like that? Yeah. It was
200 something miles per hour.
Freaking insane. And I'm like, there's a reason why people who hike Mount Everest practice on Mount Washington.
I believe the deadliest peak in the lower 48.
In the lower 48.
I could be very wrong about that, but I feel like I heard that before.
I don't think it is. But
maybe it's east of the Mississippi.
Yeah.
I forget.
It's certainly the East Coast.
Yeah.
Mount
Washington, 161.
On the list?
No, it's 161 people have died on top of it.
That's crazy.
What is the deadliest mountain, if you can trust Google? What is the deadliest mountain in the lower 48 states sitting at 6,288 feet, Mount Washington?
Shit. Look at that. But that's our backyard.
Yeah.
But I was talking about the fucking mosquitoes. It was so bad where I sat that I literally said, you know what? I'm going to throw off my morning.
Yeah.
I'm going to get up.
Not worth it.
Yeah. I'm going to get up. I'm going to walk a mile back to my truck.
Yeah.
Respray myself because I was an idiot and forgot the bug spray to bring it up with me. And then I went back up there.
That's what's great about turkey season. You don't have to worry about scent or anything like that. You can just throw on whatever works.
I've learned that turkey season is like the army. It's a lot of hurry up and wait. When you took me last year, and that was late in spring turkey season. And
yeah, it was
the last couple weeks. Anyways.
I don't know if it was the last week, but it was, it
was pretty close.
It was getting on to that point where we were like, we knew we had a challenge ahead of us.
Well, yeah.
To get
you and I both said we're probably not going to see a fucking thing.
Right. It was to the point in the year where I was like, if we get a bird gobbling, we get some action at all, it would be a win for the day.
Yeah. And I was expecting not to see anything. I was like, well, worst comes to worst, it's literally just a day of laughing with you and fucking around all over the place trying to see what happens.
I also told you if we do get one going, I bet we're going to kill it.
Yeah.
Because
they're going to be horny as fuck.
Right.
And
this is the time of year when they've probably already bred a lot of hens.
Yeah.
They've been looking for a while, and if you do get one going, you've got a really good chance at him coming in.
The reason why I was really late in that season was because of work.
Yeah.
It was they said we had to do a bunch of training for this new system that we were installing, and I'm like, you goddamn fucking, are you kidding me? You couldn't have done this a month later,
right?
Or a month earlier.
Right,
you had to pick this, and it was the same as the year before for deer season. I was like, you literally had to pick November for this to happen.
I react the same when people have wedding announcements in November. I'm like, what the fuck?
What the fuck?
Come on.
Are you stupid?
Yeah.
I'll show up, but I'll show up in like full camo and just expect me to, smell like a pig. And
yeah. Why do you smell like doe estrus?
I wonder if that's one reason why I like bear hunting so much was because it just so happens that month when it starts, which I think is September, if I remember correctly, nothing's happening.
Right.
And it's just I was able to go out, and I just sort of became obsessed
September
with
is
them.
like a month where it's just like chill.
It's pretty chill because it's before October.
Yeah.
It's before Halloween, and Halloween's my shit.
Yeah, there's kind of nothing going on.
Yeah. It's before the holidays.
I basically just use bear season as my scouting for deer season.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think my uncle Mark, who I talk with a lot about hunting, since he is the definition of an expert, in my opinion. Like he can, the way how he can just smell.
Yeah.
Like instantly. And he'll know something's coming in. And I'm like, I can't smell a thing.
Sometimes if it's like a real rutted up buck, I'll be walking through a piece of woods and I'll be like,
yes,
smells like deer right here.
You're right. I've smelt that before. Not during deer season. It was just after.
Yeah.
And what I was doing actually was I was testing out a new camera. I was getting paid to test out a camera, and I I hunt on his property a lot. I said, hey, could I just go out there one morning and film a bunch of stuff and see what I find? I found a few deer and everything, but there was this one deer, this buck that came in. He was a spike buck. He was really young, but I could smell him long before he came in.
Yeah,
and I was like, I know what that is.
And some people are going to think we don't have any idea what we're talking about. It's one of those smells that you can't really describe it.
Yeah.
It's like this like musty, like
Yeah.
glandular. It's hard to explain.
It's strong.
But once you smell it, you know what it is.
Yes. And well, that's how I learned what it was because I went out there a couple years earlier, and it was in the middle of December. And I was ironically also testing out another camera.
Yeah. But it's like a musty smell, but it's not a bad smell either. Like
this one stank. The reason why is because there's 3 of them.
If you kill one and then you put the gland right up to your nose, you're like, oh.
Well, the reason why it was so strong was because I found out through trail cameras that there were 3 bucks that were just hanging around in this one area, and they were spraying all over themselves everywhere. Yeah, and it reeked.
Yeah, pissing on themselves.
And I talked to Mark about it. I was like, what the fuck was that smell? He described it as you described it. Was like the strong kind of like musty, musky smell. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, those were deer. And now that I know what that smell is, I can pick it up a lot easier.
Sometimes I'll smell the smell too. If it's like a bedding area where they spent like a lot of time in an area, I'll be walking through and like, yeah, there's some deer in here. Yeah.
He'll hear stuff too.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I don't know how you can hear that because you're deafer than a post otherwise.
Yeah.
But he'll pick up, I remember this one day he was sitting next to me. He's like, Adam, there's a, he didn't know if it was a buck or a doe, but he was like, there's a deer coming in. And I'm like, what the fuck are you hearing?
Yeah.
And sure enough, not 5 minutes later, in came a doe. And I was like, holy shit.
It's a very specific set of noises that a deer will make coming in because a lot of the time they won't be walking, consistently. They'll take a few steps, stop. Take a few steps, stop.
Makes sense for what they are.
When they're right on the edge of your hearing, it'll just be something that you're like, it'll be something that just perks you up. You're like, that, especially if you've been sitting in that area or been walking through that area, you kind of get like the hum and like just the vibe that the woods is giving off. Like, chickadee here, crow calling over there.
Lots of squirrels.
There's acorns dropping in that tree. Don't pay attention to that.
Yep.
And then you'll just hear this one crunch of leaves that you're just like,
You're absolutely fucking correct.
And you're like, huh. And then it crunches again. You're like, all right. And then it crunches again. You're like, okay, there's a deer coming in.
There's something coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't a normal crunch.
Right.
It was really funny. I had a family. That's all I can describe. It was a family of bears that came in. Because where I was sitting...
So you shot the cub immediately?
I immediately shot the... No, actually, I targeted the mother.
Okay.
I was like, yeah.
Even darker.
But I saw... What happened was, it was getting towards like that last half hour of legal shooting. Didn't hear a fucking thing the whole day.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
And then all of a sudden... And this is the difference between bears and deer. Deer are unbelievably stealthy most of the time.
Yeah.
Bear don't give a shit.
Yeah, it sounds like a herd of cattle walking through the woods.
The loudest series of crunches I've ever heard... sitting there, and I literally leaned forward and I go, that's either a moose or a bear.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's not a moose.
Right.
And out came this huge sow. In fact, I'm actually hoping that this year she looked like she was at the end of her like breeding age. She was so big.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really hoping that it would be awesome if she didn't breed this year, because I would love to take that bear. If she came out in front of me, she was a nice fucking bear. But I watched her, and not 30 seconds later, out came these 2 little guys.
Damn it!
And I was like, But I enjoyed watching them though.
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching them because she would eat. It was over a bait site. She would eat, and then the 2 cubs would like pick on each other. Yeah. And it was really funny.
They mess around with each other.
It is so funny. And I caught them on my trail cam too, out in another spot that I go. 2 fucking cubs just going at it.
Yeah.
And you could see like one was sneaking up on the other because they're eating clover. And they're sneaking up on each other. Or like one was sneaking up on the other, then like leapt in the air and just pounced on the other bear. And they started rolling around. And I knew Mama. I didn't capture Mama. But I knew she was just off frame because at one point suddenly they stopped and looked. And I'm like, she snapped at him.
Yeah.
She laid down the law. But with deer, I've had them where they've just shown up.
Yeah, they're ghosts.
Yeah.
They can be if they want to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes deer, if deer are comfortable in an area and, they haven't smelled anything that alerts them, they'll walk right in just like they own the place. But other times, if they're sneaking around and, really in stealth mode, you'll just be sitting there and all of a sudden one's standing 10 yards away from you.
Yeah, that happened to me 3 years ago. It was a big buck because I could see the rack on it.
Yeah.
It was dark out because it was during that last 15 minutes. I call it prime time.
Yeah.
And I even say in my head, I'm like, it's prime time. It's the last half hour. I just happened to look over and suddenly I saw it step out of the woods onto the pipeline. I didn't hear a fucking footstep.
Yeah.
And when it leapt back, because I'm facing the opposite direction,
right.
So I'm like, fuck. There's no way I'm going to be able to turn around and this thing's not going to hear me, see me, smell me, whatever. And sure enough, that's what happened.
Yeah.
And I didn't even hear it leap back in the woods.
No.
I was like, what the? Was that a ghost?
Yeah.
Was that literally a ghost?
Did I just see what I thought I saw?
Yeah.
I got super mad at a deer last year.
Yeah.
I was hunting over in Vermont during the late muzzleloader season. And a buddy of mine had driven up through this cut right before daylight. And it was fresh snow and there wasn't a single deer track in this cut. And he came back and he let me know. He was like, hey, that place you were going to go to, there's no deer tracks in. I was like, all right. I was like, oh, I'll go up through there. I got out of work that day and I flew up there real quick. I went up through the same cut and I was like, there's fucking deer tracks everywhere. Like, what was he talking about? And so I'm looking at him and a few of them were like, nice tracks. I could tell one was definitely a nice buck track. And it looked like maybe he had like a handful of does with him. And so I messaged him back. I was like, are you sure there's no deer tracks in this cut? And he was like, yeah, there was nothing. I was like, well, there's like a bunch right now. He's like, well, they can't be very far in front of you. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. And so I tracked him for a little while and maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, I caught up to him, tracking him on snow. I saw him get up out of his bed, but I could never see his head.
Right.
And I was like 70% sure it was a buck by his tracks, but he stood up and just the way he kind of like, he sensed me come up to him. He was maybe 50 yards away.
He didn't quite know what you were.
He didn't quite know what I was.
Yeah.
And he stood up out of his bed and I could have shot him easy right there. I had a clear shot on his vitals, but I never did get a good look at his antlers or if he had any. And I was like, shit. And so I kind of had to let him walk away. And so then I started, then he started walking again and eventually started trotting and eventually figured out that he wasn't supposed to be in that where he was. And he started running and he ran and he ran and he ran and he walked and he walked and he walked. And I had to have followed him for another 5 miles. Not in a straight line, but just, over here, go back over here. Basically, he was doing these like U's. He'd walk a ways, then he'd hook a U-turn, and then he'd just wait. And he'd wait for me to come along.
I've noticed that they do that.
And watch his backtrack. And I was going just slow enough that he would become confident. He started to get confident that he wasn't being followed again. And so like I said, he was zigzagging, but he was zigzagging in the same direction.
Right.
And so he went all the way in this one direction. Then finally, on one of those times when he U-turned and then he started walking again, he went in a completely opposite direction for a while. I was like, okay, I think this deer's going to bed down again. He's calmed down a little bit. He worked his way up onto this ridge top, and I saw where he fed in the snow a little bit, and I saw where his antler marks were. So I was like, okay, I definitely have a buck now.
Okay.
Like I'm for sure following a buck.
As a layman, when it comes to deer hunting, what was it, like a scrape or was it like
he put his nose down in the snow?
Yeah.
To
it was in the snow. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
No, his antler marks were in the snow. Like you have his nose print right here.
Okay.
And then like out here was two like little dots of where his antlers came up.
Gotcha.
And back down. And it wasn't a giant buck by any means, but
isn't hunting in the snow great sometimes?
I love it. I love it so much. It's like you get more information that
you get a lot more info.
Like you can really like zero in on a deer. But anyway, this deer works up onto this ridge top and I see where he fed and his antler marks were, but he reset his feet a few times I could see in the snow.
Right.
Like he stood there for a while. Mm-hmm. And he turned around and he looked at his backtrack again. And then he walked off. And just everything that tracking deer throughout my, the 20 years I've deer hunted said that this deer is right here, right now. Like he's looking at, if he's not looking at me right now, he's right here. I'm taking like one step every 30 seconds, just, looking, step this way, looking. And right as I saw just an antler, and right as I saw him, he saw me, and I swung, and he just went boop out into the woods, and I yelled at him I was like, fuck you. Like, you didn't even give me a chance.
Yeah.
And he was, 140, 150 pound deer. And he wasn't a giant by any means, but,
Smarter than you, apparently.
Most of them are, but...
I always am like, they're smarter than I am.
Well, I mean, they live their whole lives trying to evade, if not us, coyotes.
Yeah.
Or whatever other predators.
As I'm always like, particularly, it's with deer that I do that. I'm like, chances are, they know you're there.
Yeah.
They already know you're there. And they're probably going to be smarter than you.
Like, I've killed a lot of deer, and I know I'm probably going to shoot at least something during the season, but I'm still at the point where when I do get something, it's still a surprise.
I love it. Oh, yeah.
I got one. All right, cool.
Yeah, that's what my Uncle Mark was telling me about. He was saying he almost doesn't like going deer hunting anymore because he's lost that spark.
Which, and this is going to probably piss some people off. There's nothing that bugs me more than when I'm watching a hunting show, whether it be guys from up here, which there's a few guys from up here, or that make really great hunting content. They shoot something, they're like, "Yeah, I got one."
That drives me nuts.
I don't.
Like, I would be shaking in my boots. I would be laughing, or I would be like in disbelief that I just.
The whole reason why I do it is that rush and then that come down. It's the natural high. I gotta say, if I ever get to that point where I'm like, "Cool, I shot a deer," I probably won't do it anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's what Mark was saying, because Mark is a good guy. Mark took my 80-something-year-old aunt. He built a shack for her to like sit in and hunt, and it has like a little heater in it.
Yeah.
And he would take her out.
Making one of those for my dad too.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing that with my remaining grandfather in Maine, because he really wants to, and I'm looking forward to it, because during deer season, at least once, I want to take that camcorder with me, because he wants to go. And if he gets a deer and I'm filming it, I'm going to be like, that would be fucking awesome. Because I think he's 82. You were talking your story about getting that deer, and you were like, you were stalking it and everything like that. That is not me. I like, look at me. There's no way I'm stalking through the woods, or if I'm stalking through the woods, it's only for a short period of time. And I'm a lazy hunter. What happens is I'll find, and I remember when we went, you took me muzzleloader hunting. Yeah. There is a spot where we went into this area, and you kind of see like there was almost like a crossroad. There was like an intersection. And I said, I know me. I would have sat right there.
Which is a perfectly good way to kill deer.
And that's just always what I've done. That's what, when I had to...
That's a very old school way of hunting.
Yeah.
You find a good spot and you sit there.
It's a lot of sitting.
Yeah.
Like I'll go, like I remember when it was bear season, because I remember I was like, I'm only going to be up here for 3 days. And when I hunt for meat. I don't hunt, if it happens to be a trophy.
Yeah, folks, if you're looking for a trophy hunting podcast, this ain't the one.
This is not the one.
I mean, we've shot a few nice ones, but we like filling that freezer first before we care about it.
Yes, I'm still eating some deer meat, and I've still got plenty of bear meat. Yeah. That's all I've been eating. And my freezer was completely full of that, and I'm like, that's why I do this.
Yeah.
Is I want to eat it. And I was sitting there, and I wasn't looking for a trophy, but there were some parameters that I had. One, it had to be alone. Right. It couldn't have been a mother, and it couldn't be a cub, Yeah. Those are my big parameters. I literally would go up there at the ass crack of dawn, 30 minutes before, a half hour before sunrise.
Right.
And I would sit there, and I sat there from and I think at that time it was like 5:30 a.m. It was pretty early when I'd go up there, and I'd sit there until noon. Literally just sit there until noon. And then I'd get up and I'd leave for a few hours. And then I'd go back up there for another 4 or 5 hours and just sit there. And I saw so many bears come in. Like I've never been in a position, and granted it was over a bait site.
Right.
But I've never been in a position where like they're 20 feet in front of me. That's it. And I've never seen so many bears in my life. And that alone to me got me excited and was like, this is awesome, because I love seeing them. It would irk me because I'd be like, that's a mom with a cub. And it got to the point where I saw them so much that I started recognizing what bear they were.
Yeah, that's that one.
And then the one that I got, she wasn't very big. She was, I think, 100 pounds, 100, maybe 110.
Perfect eater.
Perfect. Yeah. Great meat. The only reason why I saw her, it was prime time. And it was so dark. I had like 10 minutes left illegal shooting. It gets to that point where I always go, is it really worth it? It was so dark. and you had the forest, right? And it was so dark. And the only reason why I noticed her, I saw her nose. It was lighter than the rest of the body. And I'm like, was that there before?
It's weird the little things you pick up on when something comes in.
Yeah. And I was like, and I looked away and I looked back and I was like, was that there before? What the fuck is that? And so I looked through my scope of my grandfather's 308, which is what I use predominantly. Both deer hunting and bear hunting is at 308. I looked through the scope and the scope magnifies the light a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure as shit, there she was. She was around the corner of the little bait pile. And I was like, oh my God, awesome. And if I looked away from the scope, I couldn't see her.
Yeah.
If I looked in the scope, I could see her. It was that dark out.
That's right on the edge of legal.
Yeah. I was literally, I was looking at my watch. It was one of the ones where like the numbers glowed in the dark. And I was literally like, I got to take the shot.
Now or never.
Yeah, it's now or never. It wasn't my best shot. She ran about, I think, 150, maybe 200 yards
that's not
before she
horrible.
died. I felt so bad, though, because I was like, we're tracking her. And at first, I was going in completely the wrong direction.
The thing you got to think about, how fast a bear can cover 150 yards.
Oh, yeah.
She ran to her death,
yes.
more likely than not. So it's like the bear still didn't last that long.
She didn't.
After it got shot.
It was the hole that 308 punched into the side of that bear. When we found her, she had some guts hanging out of her.
Yeah.
And I was like,
that
holy.
Happens.
That's actually how we realized.
Yeah, the first bear I ever shot, it was quartering 2. And so I hit it perfect behind the shoulder, but I didn't realize how much it was facing towards me.
That was what happened.
It came out right here.
Yep.
So I took out a lung, liver, and then it went through its guts, and when we walked up on its guts were everywhere. But
I couldn't believe it. I actually didn't puncture the guts.
Yeah.
It was just the hole that was there, and the pressure that's inside of you naturally was forcing them out. Yeah. And I was like, I couldn't. Mark was sitting there because he helped me, kind of track it. And because that's another thing too, where it's like I'm still learning of tracking it. Plus, it's in the middle of the night. There's not any moon. You're hunting something that is already black.
And if it gets cornered, it can
potentially
be very not happy about it.
Potentially a wounded bear. I've never been more tense out in the woods in my life. And also unbelievably thick brush in this area.
Yeah.
Unbelievably thick brush. Sure enough, sure as shit.
Which is a hallmark of good bear hunting areas.
Yeah.
It's normally pretty thick.
Yeah. Perfect spot. Like there's so many bears in there. Even before we put out a baiting pile, I was like, there's so many bears in here. We didn't see them, but we'd see their shit. We'd see their tracks.
Yeah.
We'd see their beds. We're like, they're everywhere. We almost lost track of where this bear was because it's almost interesting. Like you think with a hole that big, she'd be bleeding out all over the place. She wasn't. I just happened to look over to my left and I saw another blood trail. And I was like, yeah, here, she's somewhere over here. I just happened.
Did a loop or something.
Yeah, I just happened to do that. That's actually what she did. She ran, if you're literally looking at the cardinal directions, she ran north, then booked it east, and then booked it south. Yeah. She made a big loop. And she ran across the pipeline. I was unbelievably happy to have gotten her because I was like, this is why I came out here.
Yeah.
I just wish the shot was better. And it was because she was at a weird angle. Like I hit behind the shoulder exactly where I was supposed to hit, but because of the angle, it wasn't the best of shot.
Yeah, that's why like actually knowing the anatomy of the animal you're hunting is very crucial because you can make, if you have a marginal shot, you can make that marginal shot a great one if you know like where you should be aiming.
Yeah.
Especially with a rifle. With bow it's a little bit different. You got to worry about, shoulder. You can't hit that shoulder blade unless you're running a very specific arrow setup.
Which, by the way, you bow hunt. I do not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a bow, it's a lot trickier on where you need to place that arrow. But with a rifle, especially if you need to make a shot happen, you can make a shot happen.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Which is not what the big hunting shows will tell you. It's got to be broadside. It's got to be not moving.
Well, your best chances are broadside, certainly. But
certainly, like in an ideal world where everything happens perfectly, a broadside shot where they're not moving is what you want. But around here where your chances are few and far between, and if you even see a deer, you're doing pretty good. If a deer gives me a shot that isn't is anything except for a leg shot, I'm taking it.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
And obviously, if it's just a pure gut shot, I might hold off.
I wouldn't do it.
I'd probably hold off and wait for a better one. But if I shoot once and and it's still on its feet and it's still moving, if I can shoot again, I'm
doing it again.
I'm shooting again.
Yeah, I shot the second deer that I got, which was a huge doe. Because that shows you how long it's been since I've got a deer. Was because it was during youth season. And I was youth.
Yeah.
She was she was like a 150-pound doe. She was huge, or for me, she was huge. And the first shot, I grazed her at best because I was standing up, and it's like she hopped and then froze.
Didn't know what happened.
Yeah, and that gave me the opportunity to shoot her again, and I shot her. She didn't move she moved about 10 feet. She was dead.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, thank God. And my first and second bear, but the first animal I ever shot was a bear. He ran, I think, about 30 feet, was dead. And then my second bear that I got, I don't even think ran 30 feet until suddenly I heard a moan, and I was like, oh, he's right by there. And sure enough, he was dead. So this was I felt bad.
How long did you wait before you looked for it?
Oh, probably 5 minutes at most.
Yeah, so that thing ran to its death and it was dead.
It was.
I don't think you have anything to feel bad about there.
Oh, well, don't get me wrong. I don't really feel bad because
wait until you have to slit something's throat. That'll really make you feel bad.
Yes. Yeah.
I wouldn't do it with a bear. I'd just shoot it again.
But. Well, that's why I had the. Well, actually, no. Mark had the pistol. I had the semi-auto, the one that we target practiced with. That's what I use.
Yeah.
And I just had that thing up, and I was like, you know what? I can't believe I really don't recommend this, but when we got into the thick shit, I was like, safety off.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I'm going
around.
in. Yeah.
Goddamn thing with teeth.
Yeah.
You have any scary bear stories?
Yeah. It actually is why I stopped bear hunting for years. I've been charged. And it was not a bluff charge. She was pissed.
Yeah.
You ever had that happen?
I shot one time and I don't really think it charged me. It just ran straight towards me.
Yeah, yeah.
And it literally died right at my feet.
That's oh my God. If somebody were to ask, like, hey, Adam, what's that smell? I've been like, yeah, I just shit myself. I'm not afraid to admit it. What happened was I took the shot and I wounded her. Not bad.
Yeah.
I don't think I wounded her bad because it was not a great shot.
It didn't hit her enough to kill her.
But freaking Mark and I were sitting there for a good 5 minutes being like, are there cubs? Look for cubs. Because him and I have the same mentality. If they've got cubs, I don't care what the fishing game says. If she's a mom and she has cubs, I'm not shooting.
Yeah, you don't shoot a mom.
Well, that's what the fishing game are saying. Because they're like, there's so many
right now.
Yeah, because there's so many.
Right.
They're like, the only way you're going to do that is by killing them.
Right. There's 2 tags you can buy now.
Which I am looking forward to.
Yeah.
Took the shot, wounded her. She roared. And she charged right at me, got within like 10 feet from me. And I was so young that I was just petrified. Yeah, I didn't know what to do other than just stand there. Just stand there. Yeah, and that's what Mark was like. And then she got within 10 feet, roared again, and then booked it right. Her right.
Yeah.
And disappeared. And then we were like, fuck, let's look for blood. And we started looking for blood. And then we heard up in the tree cubs crying.
God damn it.
And I was like, no fucking way. And they did. They came crawling out of the tree. They were perfectly hidden up in that tree. And they were crying. It was the saddest sound I've ever heard in the woods.
Well, luckily you didn't kill her, so
yeah.
She probably came back and found them later,
I guarantee you she came back eventually and found them. Because I'm not telling you, we found 1 drop of blood. That was it.
Which, yeah, bears are known to not bleed a lot anyway, so.
But nothing came of it. Nothing came of it. I did say this, though. I remember saying this to Mark. I remember when we were like, we've looked for hours. She's still alive somewhere. We're pretty sure she's still alive out there somewhere. She's going to be fine. She's probably going to be fine. She'll find the cubs and whatever. And even if she doesn't, the cubs they looked big enough that they probably would have been fine. They probably would have
figured it out.
But I remember looking at him, and I set the gun down, because we were kind of resting for a little bit, and I said, I think I'm done.
Yeah, especially when you're young like that, when something like that happens, it bothers you.
And I remember he didn't judge me at all. Mark was like, I understand.
Yeah.
I got you. And we went back to my grandfather, because my grandfather was still alive then. He owned the land then. And, he walked in, and I remember Grandpa being like, yeah, that done it sucked.
Yeah.
And I was honestly, I think that was one of the last times I really went hunting for years.
There's a certain roar that bears make when they're dying, and they know they're dying. That is just,
It's actually a good thing. It means you got a good shot.
It means they know that they're done, and they know they're done, and they're gonna die.
Yeah. But this was not that.
No.
And then on top of that, hearing the cubs crying.
Yeah.
It was the most pitiful sounding thing. I'll never forget the sound. The closest thing I could describe it to, Marvin, was literally a newborn baby crying.
Yeah.
And I mean screaming crying.
The worst are rabbits. Have you ever heard one of those things start screaming?
Jesus, mother. Well, actually, we had it was just the off season, right? And there's the coyotes were so bad they started going after my dog. And so Mark took me out back of our house and we just went coyote hunting. And that's how he would lure them in, is he had this little tiny thing that looked like it was a rabbit flopping around all over the place. And it would every once in a while let out one of those screeches.
Yeah.
And they worked.
Fox Pro.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And they freaking worked. He got two. He got two doing that, just sitting there.
And I've coyote hunted, not hard, but off and on throughout the years, and
I enjoy it.
I would enjoy it a lot more if I would ever fucking shoot anything, because I've used one of those little collars with the spin around thing. Mm-hmm. I can't get dick to come in.
Yeah,
I've shot two.
I've only gotten one.
I've shot two coyotes, but never when I was actually hunting coyotes. I shot one when me and my dad were at the house. We heard him start howling behind the house.
Yeah,
I grabbed the gun and I looked about, and there one was, and I shot it.
Yeah,
and then the other one I shot, I was actually bear hunting.
Yep, same. That's when I got mine.
I was bear hunting. The rest of the story would be better for a different podcast. But
yeah.
Anyway, the thing was chasing deer.
Same.
And it came through, and I shot it while it was on the run. That one messed me up a little bit. You talked about, well, when I shot him, the first shot went right through both of his front legs.
Ooh.
And he let out this scream, just like if you stepped on a dog's tail.
Yeah, I know.
Just a normal dog's tail in the house. I was like, oh God. And he
yeah.
And so I ran down there and I popped one right in the back of his head. Horrible sound. Because you've heard the sound before.
Yeah.
Like your own dog has made that noise before, because they're not that much different.
Yeah. No, mine was a good clean kill because I was up in a tree. Was bear hunting in the same tree which I shot my first bear. And believe it or not, I can climb a tree. Believe it or not. And this is a huge pine. I have no idea if it's still there or not, but it was a huge pine. And I was sitting up there, and out came a mama deer and her little fawn. And they were eating clover. That's why I was sitting there, was because there's a fuck ton of clover down there.
Yeah.
And you swear to God, it looked almost like somebody put a food plot there. But nobody did. It was just clover for some reason grew there, like a shit ton.
Must have had good sunlight.
Yes, it did. It was in a big field. And out came them, and they ate for like 5 minutes and disappeared in the woods. And about 5 minutes later, out came that fucking coyote. And Mark didn't even have to tell me anything. I was like, that fucking coyote's after that fawn. And I shot it. Shot went straight through its neck, broke its neck, was dead right there.
Perfect.
And Mark was so angry at me, not legit angry. But he was like, you know how many fucking years it took me to get a coyote at him?
Yeah.
And I was like, how many? He was like, 10.
Yeah.
It took me 10. You've been hunting for 3 years and you already got a coyote? Fuck you.
My dad is 67 and he just shot his first one.
Oh, yeah.
He had seen it before. It was hanging out with a few other ones.
Yeah.
And I brought my 22-250 up there and let him borrow it. And sure enough.
I like those guns.
They're especially, mine's a Thompson Center Venture Predator in 22-250.
Okay.
It's got a Coyote special scope from Nikon, which they made back in the day. It's the same camo and everything. Looks great. I love that gun.
Yeah.
I think it was Christmas morning. He woke up and sure enough, they're hanging out in the back field, and he grabbed it and shot it from the upstairs window.
That's what my grandfather used to do. He would see him and he'd just shoot him out the back window.
As far as things that are hard to kill around here, coyotes top of the list because they're so smart and they're so skittish.
Yeah.
And they're small, so you can miss them very easily, too.
Mm-hmm. That's it for the first episode. You want to know what the hell episodes are going to be like? This is a pretty good one. It was all over the place.
Yeah, we're going to be all over the place. and this is basically just us shooting the shit.
Shooting the shit about shooting shit. There you go. That's a good tagline.
I think that's our new motto.
Yeah, I think that is it. Shooting the shit about shooting shit. Well, thank you very much for tuning in if you're still here.
You're probably not.
You don't have anything to pimp out. You don't have a YouTube channel or
Nope.
anything like that.
No. Follow my Facebook. No.
Yeah.
If you didn't like us now, you'll really not like us after you see the memes that we like.
There's a couple I've opened up at work. I've been like, oh. All right. Well, all the social media is available in the description below. Thank you very much for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode. Not sure what the schedule is going to be like for these, but...
You might see this within weeks, or this might have been recorded months ago. So.
Yeah, we have no idea.
No.
No idea. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace out, ladies and gentlemen, and lucky hunting.